Clairvoyance. Today we have an introduction to clairvoyant mediumship. Hi. Many of you have made my worst nightmare, live video, and I blow my lines. Okay, I'm a total goofball. You can ask my wife. She will confirm that. Clairvoyance. Today is an introduction to clairvoyant mediumship. And you've probably been there before, meditating, and the face of your grandmother shows in your mind. Or you're driving along and all of a sudden this huge three-dimensional stop sign with red flashing lights fills your vision for a split second. Something flashed on my live screen over here and I had to look at it. Or you awaken in the middle of the night and on your drift back to sleep, you're kind of hovering between sleep and awake. And there's someone standing next to your bed. These are all examples of possible mental mediumship and the version called clairvoyance. If you're interested in learning how to develop bulletproof clairvoyance, and by bulletproof, I mean your ability to access your mental mediumship on command when you need it most, this will give you an introduction of the ways clairvoyance shows up, how it works, and some of the things to check for and test for to make sure you're accurate. Because with all types of mental mediumship, it all happens in your mind, in your head. Guess what else happens in your mind, in your head? Fantasies, imagination, copious amounts of thinking, worldviews, beliefs, and mindsets that pretty much dictate everything you do in life, every action you take, every feeling you have, every emotion you experience. And the one warning I will give you, and this will probably chase many of you off, and I'm afraid that this is just a factual truth. If you cannot stop a song from running rampantly through your head, chances are most of what you perceive as intuitive knowing or mental mediumship is simply your mind doing what your mind wants to do. At the end of this video, I'm going to share with you the most beautiful form of clairvoyance. One so incredible, so unimaginable, that very few have ever experienced it. And those who have can't do the description of exactly what it's like justice. That type of clairvoyance happens typically in a dark circle or a seance. So stay tuned to the end for that. All right, I'm T.S. Hall, the Stoic Medium. And Stoic mediumship, or Stoicism combined with spiritualism, is what I teach. And what does that mean? I help people who are rational thinkers, nerds, and other types of logical thinking people who are somehow drawn to spirituality against all logic, figure out if what the great masters taught, if things like mediumship and psychic abilities and intuitive knowing and spiritual healing are real. And my camera just shut off. Damn it. All right, so I don't know what just happened. My camera just shut off on my view screen. So I don't know if I just lost you all or not, but my settings went away. All right, so it looks like I'm darker than I was before. Oy vey. Okay. More embarrassment. This is going to be my day of embarrassment. So you're darker over there. Breath. Stop what I'm doing. Drop until I touch stillness. Come up just a little bit. And know what I should say next. And that's what bulletproof mediumship and psychic development and healing development is all about. You know, we can't control many times what happens in life, but we can control how we respond and react to it. And one of the things I've struggled with in my whole life is this idea of perfectionism. This idea that I had to put up the perfect YouTube video, perfectly edited, get out all of my ums and all of my ahs and all of my clearing my throats. I was spending hours and hours and hours trying to prepare the perfect 10-minute video because that's what all the YouTube experts say. But here's the thing, that's not me. I am not perfect. I am grossly flawed individual, but I'm a damn good psychic. And if you remember that all mediums are psychic, but not all psychics are mediums, what that means is there's a clear distinction between mediumship and intuitive knowing. And that distinction, that difference, is which radio station you tune into, which frequency or vibration or entity you tune into. If you're tuning into your own self, that's ESP. That's intuitive knowing. That's gut feels. If you're tuning into the vibration or the frequency or of an entity, that radio station of one specific entity, and that's mediumship. Today is about mental mediumship, specifically clairvoyance, and how I like to teach people who are skeptical, people who have logical, rational thinking, because that's me. I was trained as an engineer and have a very flat demeanor. I'm an INFP, if that means anything to you. So I've always been naturally intuitive and feeling and really looked at the perspective on life, trying to really understand what goes on over there. But I've also been a hopeless perfectionist. As you saw, as I had a meltdown when my camera broke down, and my worries right now that the camera is going to break down again because I have no clue what the heck happened while I'm live going out to the world. Okay. Most people are clairvoyant when they start to open up their mental mediumship skills. And that's simply because most people are visually oriented. So if I say the word apple and you see a beautiful red apple as a perfect picture, almost like a postcard, then you're most likely a visual learner. For me, I'm an auditory learner, I experience the world in abstractions. So when I hear the word apple, what comes to mind is my favorite, a Granny Smith, but not a clear, colorful, vibrant, delicious looking Granny Smith, but an abstraction of a Granny Smith apple. And if you're more kinesthetic or feeling in your experience of the world, you'd have some kind of experience of an apple. So if you relate to the world visually, so if I say car key, you see the clear picture of a car key, most likely your spirit guides and teachers and your intuitive knowing are going to represent themselves in your mind as images. Clairvoyance, or thought form images rather than thought form abstractions. So my camera blipped off again. I don't know what the heck's going on. We're supposed to be plugged in. So I don't know if we're still streaming or not. Oh, that's what's going on. Got it. So it doesn't have a memory card. So that's what's going on. I made a classical mistake. Now, do I disappear off the air? Dun, 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 dun. Oh, man. How much more of a fool can I make of myself? We're going to persevere, and I will do my best. No, I'm going to be right back. So I apologize, but I am extremely frustrated right now at my own lack of preparation. So while I run off this camera, I'll be back in less than a minute. I'm going to give myself a suitable self-flagellation and come back and we'll start again. Okay. Take 3 on live TV. Okay. Deep breath again. Isn't that the way life? You come up with a plan. You know what you need to do. But then you got to figure out how to do it. You got to master it. You know, if you were going to play a piano, you can understand the chords and the notes very quickly. But being able to practice them and master them and allow yourself to get a 3-dimensional expression of what's going on in your training and your musicality takes a little while. I've been a practicing medium since the early 90s, 1990s, not 1890s. I'm not quite that old. And I had a dream when I got ordained as a spiritualist minister to be able to teach people online in areas of the country that it's not safe to not be Christian. You know, I was born in the South. And as our country is going through the turmoil of all of our racial problems and prejudices and opinions about what's right and what's wrong, and for God's sake, people have a problem even wearing a mask for the safety of others and their own safety. Being able to master your expression is now possible online. So I'm trying to learn to teach that, and man, have I gone through the learning curve. If you're committed, though, to learning how to develop your mental mediumship, and remember, the mental mediumship are all the clairs: clairvoyance, clairaudience, claircognizance, clairsentience, and clairsmelliance, and clairtastience. I can never remember them, but our teachers very rarely communicate that way, but I do have a couple of stories. So if you're really interested in developing the clairs, your mental mediumship, you start with whatever direction the horse is riding. So for me, I was clairaudient. So I heard words and abstractions in my ears and my head and was able to repeat what I heard. Very easy way to give messages. Claircognizance is you have this all of a sudden a knowing, and you know that you know. You may not know how you know, but you know. Clairsentience is you get this feeling, and this feeling is very expressive. And clairvoyance, which I want to share with you how a clairaudient develops clairvoyance. And what happened is for a long, long time, I would do what would be called really inspirational speaking, or I would parrot what my teacher was saying. So I touch into your vibrations. I say, would you like a message? And as I touch into your vibration, I'd quiet my mind. Just what you saw me do a little bit while ago. If you're still here, stop, drop, and know. Stop what I was doing. Drop in, touch stillness. Come back up a little bit and know what to say, because I was tuning into the vibration of my teacher, and I would repeat what they said. As I became more and more comfortable and competent with giving messages to the public and getting my own messages, I realized that right before I got any words, as soon as I touched my teacher's vibration, I would perceive an image. But the image was not unlike I would be presented a Polaroid that wasn't completely developed. So this is the image on this side that you're looking at. And this was the back of the Polaroid. Then all of a sudden I touch into my teacher's vibration and the Polaroid would be flipped around and I would see it. But it would be kind of like a negative. If you're old enough to remember when we had actual film, you would see a negative. But then I could go on and describe what I saw in that image, even though it was there for less than a second, for quite a while. I could describe the whole thing. It's not unlike a dream. And they tell me a dream usually lasts between 5 and 10 seconds, but sometimes it could take up 20 and 30 pages in your notebook of all the details that's crammed in there. That's what clairvoyance was for me. And then I would describe the picture and the image, and then my teachers would give me the words to share with the person I'm reading for about the interpretation of the image. So I had that skill set. And over time, I eventually realized I was getting these feelings, especially if I was having a difficult time describing the essence of why someone was receiving the message. So that's my story. In just a moment, we're going to talk about dark circles and seances. And dark circles and seances are mainly for the reason of physical mediumship, so you can see etherealizations and materializations manifest before you. Our teachers would create an image in the middle of this dark room, and we could see it. Well, if you're clairaudient and you don't see things, perceive things visually, they're boring as hell. But I could hear things. The main thing I would hear is how people were describing an image that they thought was projected in the circle, which didn't match or ring true. So the number one enemy you've got for all of your own spiritual, psychic, and mediumship development and ESP practices is delusion. And delusion is seeing something that's not there. So I'm going to share with you the magic secret. The number one thing you can do if you're absolutely committed to mastering mental mediumship. I was asked the other day on the comment, how do I know what teacher I'm talking to? That's what I do at Old Soul Academy. That's what we do in our classes. I actually show you and teach you how to connect with your spirit guides and teachers. The answer is, oh, something just came into my head, is not a high level of integrity, in my opinion, and how I was trained. As I mentioned to you, I teach stoics, nerds, and other rational thinkers how to embrace spirituality. I do that by applying a scientific methodology. And that scientific methodology starts here. First thing you want to do is you want to quiet your mind. Stop, drop, come up just a little bit and know. Put your hands and ask one of your teachers to make themselves known to you. And don't be freaked out. You may feel nothing, you may feel something. But one hand will feel different than the other. Once that happens, you want to say, let's say your right hand felt different than your left hand. Say, okay, I'm going to work with righty. Righty? Yeah, the teacher who stands on your right. Righty. And you say, okay, righty, I want you to tell me what this card is. So you take a deck of playing cards, pull out all the face cards, and you say, okay, righty, tell me what this top card is. Quiet your mind, stop, drop, come up and know. Think about righty, but not really think. You're in a place of quiet receptivity, of thinking tranquility, where you have conscious control of your mind. All the other thoughts are quiet, and you tune into this presence or this experience or this vibration over here, and you ask them what that top card is. And you turn it over and you verify it. And you repeat, and you repeat, and you repeat. Guessing is 1 out of 40 if you get the whole card. So if you go through 40 cards and you get 1 right, that's guessing. If you get 2 right, that's twice as impactful as guessing. If you get 10 right, something's going on. That's the basic practice on all mediumship. Now, if you're clairvoyant, you'll see an image of the card. If you're clairsentient, you'll get some type of sense of what that card is. And if you're clairaudient, you will get an abstraction of the card. But either way, you will know how to describe what that card is because you can verify it when you look at it. That's the basics of how to start to develop a verifiable mental mediumship practice. You can do the same thing with your own intuition and your own knowing, but rather than tuning into lefty or righty or whoever you're talking to, you tune into your own selfie, your own intuitive knowing, and you go from a gut feel or an intuitive knowing or a premonition, if you will, about what that card is. Very black, very white, very measurable, and the easiest hard thing you'll ever do. Because no one likes to sit there and go through 40 cards and not get anything right. At the same time, the moment you learn how to differentiate the difference of how being right intuitively, psychically, feels different than being right when you guess, something magic happens. You start to become a psychic. You start to develop on-command displayable psychic abilities. And those psychic abilities are ESP in the form of intuition, or spirit communication in the form of mediumship. So that's the basics there. Now, a couple of things. Not unlike clairsentience, clairvoyance requires you to interpret the information that you receive. So you wake up in the morning, and first thing before you get out of bed, kind of in that drift between awake and sleep, you reach out to your teachers and say, okay, righty, show me something for today that I can verify during the day. Give me a message I can verify. And you get the image of a sun, let's say a sunflower. Then your sweetie brings you home sunflowers. Or you're driving down the road and there's a roadside flower stand, or if you're in Southern California, someone's selling flowers on the side of the road, and it's a bunch of sunflowers. Excellent. You may receive a postcard or see some type of postcard with a sunflower. Even better. If you don't see any sunflower, you probably got it wrong. So you ask the image in the morning, you write it in your psychic journal, and you verify it in the evening, and then you quiet your mind and you do your meditation practices. So that's the basic, how do you develop any of your mental mediumship modalities. Now, I mentioned a dark circle or a seance. And in a dark circle or a seance, we have it dark because dark simply means absence of light, not evil. It's an absence of light because certain types of psychic energy that spirits use to help us learn and understand is destroyed by light photons. So in a dark circle, many times we'll ask the teacher to show us an image. And in the middle of the dark circle, they'll put an image. And that image is mostly guessed at and sometimes described by those in the circle. As I mentioned, I was sitting in the circle and mostly clairaudient. And I get a glimpse here and a glimpse there and a glimpse there. But most of what people were saying and describing, I had no sense of visually. But my intuitive knowing realized that something didn't feel right. So I'll share with you my first very vivid memory of a clairvoyant image in a dark circle. So I'm sitting there in the dark, completely dark. About 8 of us in the circle, I believe. I was not leading the circle. I was a participant in the circle. So circles are led by mediums, and I was a medium in training, so I was participating, not responsible for the integrity of the circle. And as I stood there, I felt someone standing very close to me. I mean, like right here. Now, normally, Nathan, my main companion healing guide, is standing right here. But this wasn't him. He had taken a step back and someone else was standing right here. Deep breath in, stop, drop, no. And I turned my attention to my left. And right at my shoulder level and eye level is a very large black penis. And what was next to me was a young man who was a Maasai warrior. He was fully naked. He had his spear and his shield. And he was one of the most beautiful men I've ever seen in my life. just like 0% body fat. Well, probably not zero, that's an exaggeration, but definitely 4 to 5% body fat, well conditioned, just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful blue black skin, shiny, glistening. And the most scary, safe image I've ever seen in my life. And he and I had shared a lifetime previously in Africa. And at that time, I was a female entity and I was his sister. And he reminded me that my interest in healing and shamanship began many lifetimes earlier than this one. And the path I was on was really just allowing myself to remember things from the past as a spiritual healer. So that was one of my very first images. And every now and then when I touch back into the memory of that image, I get a little bit of the essence of what it was like to turn around and see a very big black man standing next to me. My joy guide reminds me that you just can't make this shit up. So that was the main thing I wanted to share with you, is that even as you get deeper and deeper into your spiritual development, you start the direction it's going. So if you're clairvoyant, you'll see images. If you are a auditory learner, you'll get abstractions. If you're a kinesthetic learner, you'll really get feelings and knowings. The part that I really want you to consider right now and to take deadly serious is this idea of delusion. Delusion. Fortunately, I developed clairaudience first. And as I started to develop images, I realized just how hard it is sometimes to interpret an image. So if you're given an image of a book and it's a black leather bound book and it's got gold gilding around it, and that's all you see is the cover, black leather, fine black leather, and gilding, most people I've observed would say I'm being shown the image of a Bible. But unless you see the word Holy Bible written on the cover, you're not seeing a Bible, you're seeing a book with gold gilding that's leather bound. Very important distinction. Our mind will fill in the gaps. So the most important aspect of you learning how to be a medium, learning how to develop your own intuitive knowing, bulletproof clairvoyance, bulletproof mental mediumship, meaning you can take it to the bank, meaning that you can make life decisions on it, is not reading between the blanks. Give exactly what you get, write down exactly what you get, remember exactly what you get, and don't interpret it. If I'm told in my ear clairaudiently, tell this person to go to this page in their Bible and look at this verse, and I repeat that, that's accurate. If I'm shown the image of a book and a post-it notes on the outside of the book that says page 832, second paragraph, it's not a Bible. It's a book that they're supposed to look at page 832, the second paragraph. These are minute details. When I work with other mediums, there's a habit that they'll say, I've got this impression and I'm not really sure where it came from. Here's what I'm getting. Or here's what Spirit's telling me. Or here's what God's telling me. Here's what the divine is telling me. That is not proper mediumship in my level of training. For most people, it's okay. And the differentiation between being able to dial in and access your intuitive knowing is the first step. Remember, all mediums are psychic, but not all psychics are mediums. So getting to know your own intuition, dialing into your own frequency, your own radio station to get information is the first step. Too many of us, though, do not give ourselves credit for our own intuitive awareness, our own divinity, our own God self within that can inform us on virtually everything we need to know. We like to rely on spirit for two reasons. One is self-esteem and self-worth issues, but the other one is it's easier to use the credibility of someone else, my high spirit teacher or my healing teacher, than it is to say, this is what I'm perceiving, this is what I'm knowing. And here's the reason both are important. Here's the reason that it matters. There are some things that your spirit guides and teachers won't answer. Should I marry this guy? Should I take this job? Should I move out of this place? In virtually all cases, they won't tell you. Free will applies. Your own decisions apply. You've got to live your own life. They will not live it for you. They can help you. They can advise you. So if I decided that I needed money really, really badly, and let's say I needed $20,000, and every time I did my thinking process, I went through and I thought and thought and thought and thought, I always came up with the fastest way for me to get $20,000 to go rob a bank. And I asked my spirit guide, Tao Chuan Ling, my high teacher over here, I said, Tao Chuan Ling, I'm going to go rob a bank. What do you think? He may say something like, are you aware of the consequences of your actions? Are you completely versed with the karma that you can create by taking that action, that cause and effect? He won't tell me yes or no, but he may give me some type of parable type advice. So if spirit won't answer, you need to be able to touch into to your own spirit self, your own spirit knowing, and allow yourself to trust what you get. Allow yourself to become connected with your own divinity, that own God source, that own I am, which is the source of your healing, your intuition, as well as the part that lives after you die, the seat of your consciousness when you're discarnate. Your brain is the seat of your consciousness when you're incarnate. So the first thing we have to do is learn how to control the brain. Stop, drop, no. Once you learn how to control the brain's thinking, then you can start to filter through all of the different thoughts, beliefs, mindsets, worldview, attitudes you've got that stop you from being open to the energetic realm, the energetic world. Well, I'm not sure how long I've rambled on today. The one thing I want to share with you that for me is worth all of the effort, because just like becoming a master pianist or guitar player or a marathon runner or even an ultra marathon runner, the practice is up to you. You know the process, but until you practice and practice in a way that you get results in the real world and can demonstrate and display those real world results objectively to those around you, are you really a master? Because the one thing I'll encourage you to consider is it's one thing to think about, speculate, and read about and watch YouTube videos about all kinds of spiritual phenomena. It's quite another to experience them for yourself, to perform minor miracles each and every day as you're training for your major miracles. Worth it? It has been for me. The deeper I get into my own spiritual training, and more importantly, the deeper I get into expressing my spirituality to those around me, the better life becomes, the more quiet, harmonious experience of being alive I have. And even though I do not get a direct compensation for everything I do, the indirect compensation is incalculable. So what's this most highest form of clairvoyance? And I have not seen this myself. I've experienced it the same way that any auditory learner would experience the word apple or car key in a dark circle. And sometimes when you're alone, your spirit guides and teachers will give you an experience of 360-degree clairvoyance. And you've probably seen those pictures on social media where you take your picture and you kind of rotate it. And if you move your screen you're watching at, you can kind of get the whole 360-degree view. Imagine being able to sit where you are and perceive a 360-degree view all in one take. Eyes literally in the back of your head and the side of your head, perceiving a whole image at once. 360-degree clairvoyance. I can't describe to you what it's like visually, but for me as a clairaudience, what it was like is not unlike being in a dark circle or a cave where it was completely black, where you had this three-dimensional experience, almost like a diorama, if you will, where you know everything is in place and everything is perfect exactly as it is and exactly as it's not. I've experienced it twice. Yeah, twice. And one time I was in a mountain scene and the other time I was in a desert scene. And both times, all of my physical senses were calm and quiet, all delusion shut off. And I was perceiving input from all of my psychic senses, all of my spiritual senses at once. Experience of oneness. That's it. I want to thank you for your attention. I hope someone's still here watching this. It has definitely been eventful for me. You got to see some of my perfectionistic, neurotic behavior. Anyway, I want to extend an invitation to you to join us at one of our online spiritualist church services. During the service, we meditate, we guide a self-healing visualization. We do an absence healing service where we send healing to our friends and loved ones who couldn't be there. And we also do a psychic mediumship messages service where everyone in attendance is offered a message from our spirit guides and teachers. If you're interested in that, get your invite at spirit360.org, spirit360.org. Our calendar is, you'll get a link to our calendar when you sign up. And in closing, I want to say this. I hope you found value in this video. I hope you really take on seriously learning how to master and develop your psychic and mediumship abilities. If you're a stoic, rational thinker, someone who's a nerd, who needs to see it to believe it, I want you to consider that some part of you already believes it or you wouldn't be wanting to see it. It's simply a matter of allowing yourself to do the training, to get the distinctions, to get the information you need and the experience, the practices you need to create the skills to experience directly what all the great masters talked about. That is the difference between spirituality and religion. Give us a thumbs up if you found this useful, thumbs down if you hated it, subscribe if you want to watch a neurotic old middle-aged white guy wax on about spirituality, mediumship, healing, and psychic abilities. And until next time, I bless you and leave you with whatever you're taking away from this video and remind you that spiritual is as spiritual does.